Hello everyone and welcome to this night's movie hangout, and tonight we're going to discuss the movie In Time that stars Justin Timberlake. And with me tonight I have two participants. I have Michelle and Alvin from Austria, Vienna. Hello guys.
Hello.
Hi, Victor.
And you who are watching this, you're welcome to participate with questions and answers, or questions, and we will answer them as we go through this movie. And, well, we're going to bring through some interesting perspectives, hopefully, on this movie tonight. And first, I thought we'll go through a short overview of the movie. Could you do that for us, Michelle?
Yes. So basically, the movie In Time is about people who are genetically engineered to live until the age of 25. And then after that, they only live for one more year unless they buy time. So they actually have these clocks on their wrists that shows them how much time they have left before they die. And the main character, Will, played by Justin Timberlake, he is living in a poor area, so he has to work very hard in order to buy time to live. Whereas the other main character, which we meet later in the movie, Sylvia, she's rich, she's an elitist, so she has a lot of time just to spend. And then Will in the movie, one day he gets the opportunity by chance to gain a lot of time, and from that he's able to escape from his poor area, and he gets to see how the rich are like, and from that he starts a revolution with Sylvia and himself, trying to get justice so the poor can also live just as well as the rich. So it's quite an interesting movie. I don't know if there's anything else you want to say, Victor.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a very interesting movie. And I know that, in particular, a point that fascinated you guys was this point of wasting time. And, Michelle, you had a quote from the movie.
I did. Okay, so Will, the main character, he runs into this really rich guy. And the rich guy asks him, if you had as much time as I have on that clock, what would you do with it? And Will says, I'd stop watching it. I can tell you one thing, if I had all that time, I sure as hell wouldn't waste it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's interesting. And I know that you guys, you have some perspective on this point of wasting time. So could you give me some, what is your perspective on wasting time?
Okay, well, when I first watched the movie or was introduced to it, I really could relate to it, as you said, with that time point, time management, wasting time. A lot of the principles in the movie of the poor is, of course, not to waste time, and many times in the movie it was mentioned by these elitist people living in Greenwich, I think it's called, that, because they have never experienced like a clock that only shows one day or a few hours. They've never really have a very fast-paced life. They're kind of taking it very slowly and stuff like that. And the poor on the other side were presented like they really run. They run to the bus, they run to work, they run from work. They wake up like punctual on time, like Will did, and a quote from Will was also when he said, Sylvia, usually people don't sleep in, when she asked him, how do you live with so little time? And I could relate to it because from a personal standpoint, I've been wasting a lot of time, and I'm still walking that point of getting down to a minimal to none of wasting my time. And I see a lot of people waste their time in the sense that they really are not aware of, or we are really not aware of time, and that we really have that intern built-in clock, even if it's not visible on the arm like on the movie. our time is limited on this earth, and we do waste a lot of time with little things like sleeping in, giving into to certain emotions of tiredness because we don't want to face this in our day, we don't want to face that because we don't have a solution, we don't know how to deal with it and stuff like that. So time wasting gets like these little things that add up to, like, I don't know, hours upon hours, which create the months and weeks and years of actually wasting time that could have been used for, I don't know, building oneself, building a better life for oneself, changing the world in this way, in that way, and things like that. So that's one point that I could relate to in the movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things with wasting time is we're not really educated on how to use our time. We grow up within the school system, and we just work and we focus on working in the system, and we never really had education on how to work with ourselves and work with others to create a better environment. So that's one thing I saw.
Yeah.
So.
You can also see how I, for example, waste time in just staying too long in the shower just because it's warm or so. Or, I don't know, just because there's like a TV show that I watched one episode and like I get this like feeling rush in me of, wow, this is so comfortable sitting here and stuff. Let's watch another, while in the back of my head or mind I know, well, I got so much other things to do, but it's so comfortable. And then I give in, and then more time gets wasted, and usually it doesn't stop at the next episode. You know, if there's like a TV show marathon on TV, it's like I'm going to continue more episodes than what I said, or one more time, or stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and also all of us three here tonight, we are from, you know, an industrialized nation, one of these countries, the first world countries, and I mean, a tendency that I have seen in friends, family, basically everyone, is that there is this sort of relaxedness, but it's not a common sense relaxedness. It's almost like a lethargia and an apathy that like, I don't have to do anything, you know, I have money, everything is just going so cool, I can just sit here. But then what we don't realize is that we don't actually have that time. And when we just sit and, I mean, maybe we have a job that we go to, but when we come home, we just look at television, or we go out and drink booze and do nothing. You know, we won't make anything of ourselves and our lives that we can actually be proud of. So in that sense, it's interesting that only when you get poor and you realize, whoa, I can't do anything, sort of at that point, we understand what a advantage and how many opportunities we do have in these countries that we live in, and with, you know, what we've inherited.
I agree, yeah. So what I can see from that is like that we have a delusional sense or feeling about having just enough time, while we don't realize that a lot of time goes to little things, or not so little things like work. You know, most people work 6 to 8 to 10 hours maybe a day. That's like 10 hours out of a whole 24-hour day. Then you have to calculate in like sleep at least 6 hours or 4 to 6 hours. That's like, you know, it adds up. So what we're left with is a certain amount, and if we even waste that certain amount that we have, then we're basically left with like just so little of what we can do in a day, and that's just not enough. And then the time runs out, and people die, and a life went to waste, and nothing really was made out of it, neither to the betterment of the individual's life, nor of the betterment of, you know, the world as a whole.
Yeah.
In there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because we can just look back maybe 100 years ago, and back then there were no rules, you know, for the labor class. For example, now we have rules in Sweden. You have to work. You can only work 8 hours a day, and if you do more than that, okay, you can do it, but it's, you know, it's not okay. You've got to have your rest.
Right.
So, and I mean, I took that point for granted, and I have done that until just recently. When I learned about these rules, that just 100 years ago, there were actually no such thing as a leisure time. And so it's interesting that when we do have this time, we don't really use it as effectively as possible.
Yeah, and I want to add that since I actually don't work, I have been using my time simply looking for jobs and preparing myself for jobs and looking at opportunities. So even though it may seem like I have a lot of time on my hands, I actually don't, because I use that time to work towards my survival or to make money, basically.
Yeah,
And I've actually gone days where I would be on the computer all day and I won't have any time for me. So, it really does depend on what you do and who you are within what you
Right.
do.
What I can also see is how time in this world, just how it's structured in the corporates and in the system relating to money, is how time really creates this stress vacuum where you just get pushed in at a certain age, and you're just bombarded from like time pressures, deadlines here, deadlines there, and that creates like an internal stress, even if you're not aware of it initially. But it's there, and it creeps up and it builds and it becomes stronger. And what I can see is people through that also like going to work, going to school, having these deadlines, they get beaten up by the system, so to speak. So when they get home, they don't want to like, they really don't feel it in themselves to really like now sit and work on themselves or better their lives in that sense. They just want to relax on the couch, watch a TV, drink booze, as you said, go out, party and stuff like that.
yeah,
So it's like a vicious cycle that was created, or that we allowed to be created in this world.
yeah,
And to push through it, of course, is gonna require a lot of like self-forced, self-directed discipline to really, step through that and just push through that feeling of being beaten up by the system, so to speak.
yeah. I mean, that's really interesting, and also this point that we do feel beaten up by the system, and how we feel so stressed, and so a day at work and we're completely exhausted. And it's actually interesting. I listened to this interview today from the store Equaf, and I just to explain briefly for those who aren't aware of this store, it's a self-help store that sells interviews that walks through various aspects of human life. And I will link it in the description box after we're done with Hangout to this interview. And what they explain in this interview is that it's not actually the job in itself that creates stress. It's not the deadlines in themselves, because the deadlines, they're not saying to you, oh, you gotta become stressed, you gotta become stressed, and the boss is not like saying, okay, if you're not stressed, I will fire you. This is like a point we're creating within ourselves. So in creating a life for ourselves and using that time we have to actually build ourselves for real, an important thing to take into consideration is learning and practicing how to walk in the system without doing it a emotional experience.
Right, very, very, very cool.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. It's I forgot to mention like before, but you did say it with that it's not the job or whatever separate entity that creates the stress. It's us. But because we have no, or we did not have up to now, a foundation of explaining how the mind works in the background and how we create things for the mind. We just did never have the education or the know-how how to approach the system in the way that it does not, or that we don't allow this stress to be created through these external entities.
And usually we get these patterns from our parents, where we see our parents getting stressed, and we imprint that. We pick up those patterns, because if our parents are doing it, if they're accepting and allowing it, then I guess we should too. And so it is like it perpetuates the cycle of stress.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite, as you say, it's difficult to sort of realize that is another way, because what I found when I go into an office, it's like there is this underlying position that everyone there is like stressed, and it's just apparently the normal state. And to get things done, you have to become stressed and just break yourself, while in fact you could just do the things and then they're done, and then you go home, and then maybe you eat something, and then you do something more. So it's like fascinating how different life could be.
Right.
Yeah. Without the emotional connection or attachment to your work, it becomes much more easy, simpler, stress-free.
Yeah.
I can relate to how you just said with when people like it seems like when you go in an office, people are like stressed and you become stressed too. It's like I can also relate when I go in. It's like it seems like for a moment it's like they just radiate this heat wave of stress, and they're like going like electrons around and around, and then you enter the office and you're like 12 with them and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, it's so interesting. I had a job this summer, and I came there, and I thought it was like, oh, it's like nice pace. It's not very much expectations. You do like that and that every day. But it was fascinating to see how still there was this stress very much present in, oh my God, I haven't done this. And the coworkers, when we had our breaks, the discussion was like, oh, I just had like this much work, and I have done all of that work, and I have that, and I forgot that. So it was this hypnosis where everyone talked each other into this state of stress that was completely unnecessary.
Right.
Okay, so let's move on. And well, how does this movie? We've actually talked about this quite a lot, but maybe we can go into it even deeper or get more overview. But how does in time and this, you know, having the time on your wrist, how does it sort of symbolize and represent what is happening on Earth right now?
Um, you mean how the clock is representing how we are living our lives and how Earth is, right? Like the life on
Yeah,
Earth?
yeah. I mean the entire um, aspect of sort of having to have time to survive.
Yes, right. So I can bring an example from my life again. As I told you before, I still am and have been much more in the past, like weeks before, feeling like always chasing after time and never being able to grab hold of just more time that I would need for just expanding my skills at work, doing projects for school, studying for exams, stuff like that. Managing personal lives, you know, not now in the system, but like more private sense of environment. Um, Doing errands to you know prepare food and stuff like that. It's like all these things just vaporize your time that you have, and creates of course like a lot of stress which you have to work through. And how like I see that a lot of, or most if not all people go through such things where like you know they are like walking like bombs that are gonna like just explode because they're so under pressure of deadlines and time and don't have time for this. I need so much time for that, not enough time for this, for that, for that.
Yeah.
Just like in my work environment, there's a lot of stress going on because of like you know, oh, I did not finish that. I only have that certain amount of time given to fix a problem. You know, otherwise I break the service level agreement, and my company has to pay a lot of money to the customers and stuff like that. And you know, the supervisors pressure you because you know they are themselves are pressured, and now you are pressured too to like have to take on, for example, incident tickets in like 10 minutes, and you have to monitor your email like constantly, and you know, it even shows percentage how much time you still have left to take that before like that service level agreement or so breaks, and you know, it just creates a lot of stress. And I think we're like in this world we're going a little bit way too fast paced,
Yeah.
especially since you know, the computer age and the information technology age, because everything is so instant now. The internet doesn't mean we can process and then deal with all that instant information in the same instant way that, you know, the electrons in the computer can do and present it to us.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like the movie The Chasing Time, they needed time to live. And in here, in this life, we need money to live. For me, for example, how I don't have a job, I utilize my time to find a job so I can get money because we need to survive. You know, we would like to have our own apartment someday. So, you know, I utilize my time to apply for jobs, but because it's so competitive, I feel almost like I need to apply for a certain job within a certain amount of time, or I have to watch or make sure I'm qualified. So there's a lot of stress involved with that part, and sometimes I feel like I don't have enough time to apply for jobs because they come and go, and maybe I lose my opportunity to work at a great company, for example. So I have to make sure I'm on it, or at least
Yeah.
I can find that opportunity to get a job.
Right. It's like everything is so competitive, and
Yeah.
you know, then you have to come before someone else. You have to compete with them to get a job before them because they could take it from you, and then you are left without money and a future or something like that. So,
And we all need money, so.
right. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I had
So,
something else, but I lost it right now.
I mean, so it's interesting that the consequence is that you don't have time for yourselves, in essence.
That's what I
Yes.
wanted to say, right? It's like we're left with no time after being processed by the system, like no time in the end for ourselves.
Mm. I mean, so what do you see any solution to this on a personal level? Have you investigated that point?
I've been working for quite some time with time, on how to deal with it and how to live my life more relaxed in the sense of not allowing stress to really rule my day-to-day living. Um, a point I found, as you said, from listening to the exact same interview as you from ECOF, was that I had to change my own relationship to like every single thing that I was perceiving as creating stress for me, like work, like not see it as if I go there, I'm going to immediately become stressed because it is making me stressed. It's more like if I go in there and I think about stress and I take that what I have to do as if it's really going to like come inside me and just start generating these stress emotions, then the stress will come. But if I go in as like, you know, I'm gonna take whatever comes in the day, whatever I'm faced with, and I'm gonna take it on and process it in the pace that I can deal with it, because I cannot go higher or above the pace that I can deal with, you know, a certain problem, or I cannot boot faster than I can deal with a certain problem. So there is no point to me, I realize, to become stressed about it, because the stress will not make me become faster at dealing with it, will not make me become more effective. It's actually going to create the opposite of, you know, like having all these thoughts about it, and that's going to slow down my processing time of that problem and finding solutions for it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I know exactly.
Yeah. So that's how I have been kind of applying in my day-to-day living constantly, every day actually. When I go to work, when I go to school, when I have things, problems in my private life or stuff like that. And it does really work if you really change your relationship to these things from, oh, it is creating stress in me, it is going to create stress in me if I'm going to do it, to, you know, it's not. I am the one who's gonna put that stress and generate it inside me, because I perceive that very thing to be like that, and so it's gonna be.
Mm.
Cool.
Cool.
A solution that I found was to learn about the system that I'm in, because I come from the United States. It's a different system than, like, well, in some cases it's different from how the Vienna or the Austrian system works, but generally to get a really good job here, you need to know people, you need to form connections and have a good network of people. So that's my solution. I've been utilizing meeting with people, connecting with people. So I think that as long as you kind of know how to get in the system, ways to get a job, I think it makes it, to me, it has been less stressful than just trying to find a job. I've been getting in the system, if that makes sense. And I connect with the people in the system.
Yeah, like
So.
expanding your know-how about things that stressed you because you didn't know how to deal with it, and then you research the things and you get
Yeah.
more comfortable with how things work, and that just subtracts a lot of stress because your stress was initially created because you had no way of how to deal with it, no knowledge of what it is, how do I process it, how do I deal with it, and then you do your research, you get to know that very thing, you interact with it, you collect the know-how, and then you get comfortable to a certain extent to like, oh, this is like this, and I have to take it on like that, or I will approach it like that, and that immediately eliminates a lot of stress too.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, in relation to what you said, Alan, I actually wrote a blog recently, and it was about quality before quantity, because a pattern that I noticed in myself was that I would go into stress and then try to do things faster. And what I could see was that there was this delusional idea that somehow when I did more things, that would imply more value, more substantial creation. But what I could see was that what I produced in this state of sort of stress, moving this point, then this point, and yeah, I'm soon done. And then for example, when doing the dishes, not even done with them, already at that point looking at, okay, now I have to go and clean the floor. And then after I'm done with clean the floor, I'm going to go and shop and so on. So what I could see there was that in that state, I didn't actually properly walk through the steps that was entailed in taking on and walking a particular activity to its conclusion. So in that I could see that, okay, it's much more effective if I structure my day. So I take on the amount of points that I'm able to take on within the time that I had, so that I can walk through them effectively and walk them to their conclusion and be satisfied with them. And realizing that I can only do as much in a day. I can't do more than that. So,
Really
yeah.
I agree totally.
Yeah, I mean, you may want to post your blog in this hangout for
Yeah,
people.
I think, I will, though it's in Swedish, so.
Okay.
Well, there is Google Translate.
Yeah. Okay, so we have now discussed the problem here, a little bit solutions as well. But I'd like to go into the point in the movie where, how they solve the problem. Because they, in essence, solve it as, they rebel against the system, they fight against this timekeeper. And, I mean, what would you say about this approach to changing the system, your experience of yourself, etc.?
Yeah, how I see it is in the movie they were rebelling, like you said, and they made it seem really like cool, empowering to rebel against the system, to steal from the rich, give to the poor, things like that. But how I see it is that isn't. I mean, if that were to happen in the real world, that isn't going to exactly work out. Simply because it's going to still cause an imbalance. If they steal from the rich, give to the poor then is going to have enough, and then what the rich is not going to have enough. So I saw it as, it's not going to be a real solution, a real good solution for everybody in the long run. Which is why I think that in order to create a more stable economic system, we need to consider all beings, rich or poor, all, and have a system where everyone has enough resources to survive, so that no one needs to rebel against the system. The system is already stable, gives enough to everybody.
Yeah.
That's how it's.
I agree. And as you said, it's not, to exclude the rich now. It's like it's not the rich's fault. I mean, most of them have been born into such conditions, and like you're born with it. You didn't do anything before that, and they're the product of their environment and upbringing. I mean, maybe there is a exception to the rule with a few that really deliberately, have been or have set up things like that. But for the majority, how I see it is like they are just simply the product of their environment, just like we are, or the poor are. Like they can't do really anything about it in the sense of directly, having done something in the system, so to speak.
Yeah.
Really, that's clear.
Yeah, and the rich, I mean, they need to survive too. So they're gonna not they don't want to give up what they have, because they also fear that they're gonna their survival will be threatened if they give up what they have. So there's also that problem to work through.
It's like they don't want to die either,
Yeah.
It's not like, everything away from them, having them deliberately as a punishment go through the hunger and I don't know, whatever is being done, so they can experience, like, I don't know, for what they have done for having so much money. That maybe they have not even been like directly connected to it, but have been, as I said, brought up. And in the movie, how sorry, did you want to say something?
No, you can go.
In the movie, how they rebelled against the system, like driving that truck, I'll call it, for lack of a better word, into the bank and stealing all these time machine capsule things.
Yeah.
Then at the end, like arriving at this like huge central bank or whatever it was, and wanting to plunder it, like just two people. As if like there is no security systems or something else in the bank. They can just walk in like, hey, cool, I'm chilling, I'm gonna just walk with a gun and rob you. And what I'm trying to say is like, if we rebel against the system and now in real life go and destroy banks and stuff like that, that's still not gonna change very much, maybe not anything in the system besides having done a lot of destruction and even more harm. Because the root principles on which the system, or the root ideas from which the system was raised up and born and built, are still in place within people's mind. They're like anchored there. They're like they've become their very principle of their lives, because that's what they have always known. And destroying external entities is not going to change that internal root that we all have now in our minds. So it needs to be dealt with the principal ideas of how have we come to let these ideas bring up, a world system where this works like that and that works like this. And to change it completely to something, let's bring in the idea, the principle of life, and supporting everyone, seeing everybody as equal, animal, plants, stars, everything, and bring up a system in a practical way that deals with that core foundational idea. Or more common sense principle.
Yeah.
And it is difficult to implement such a system because, like you said, we're so ingrained with those ideas.
Right. It's like we're living, breathing the idea that's already here, the foundations of the world system that's already here. And we're gonna create the same thing if it gets destroyed externally, because we create from our foundation, which is anchored in us for now.
And I mean, here it's cool because we can then take what we discussed initially, which was more, on a personal level, and see that that is actually part of a world solution, a global solution. Because when we can walk out into our lives and stand as an example that, okay, I'm not stressed about this, and I'm not going to go into that state of energetic competition, because I don't want that in my life. I will simply, do my work, and I will do it by principle that I've designed for myself. For example, I go to work each day because I see that in my work environment I can make a contribution to my colleagues as well as to customers and give this service as specifically as possible at the same time stand here as an example, that you're able to do this work simply as a physical application of yourself, and this entire stress and survival thing, it doesn't require to be a constant state that we're in. We're actually able to change this system and stand as the catalyst of that change through who we are in our presence and our words, what we decide to take on, what we accept and allow, and what we will not accept and allow.
Yeah, and standing as an example, like what you mentioned, will inspire and influence other people to stand as those examples. And from that, we create a better world.
Right, I agree. It's like, as you said, like we have to change our starting point of why we go to work. Even if my job, for example, is not the best, and I totally despise doing it. If I go with that starting point and that attitude to the work, it's just gonna compromise my own life and my own well-being in the mental and the physical sense. And I'm gonna get out of the work much more like processed, so to speak, than I went in. Or than if I would just go from a starting point, okay, my work environment is not at the moment ideal, but let me see what I can do out of it for a certain amount of time that I have to deal with it, and how can I utilize the time to build myself within it, to expand my skills, to, I don't know, maybe resonantly create myself out there for opportunities for me to open up, and from there move out. And within a principle of like gearing towards something that's going to be beneficial for yourself, as like from a life starting point that includes equality in all, not harming anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, because you can have a crap job. For example, let's say that your job is to go and stand by one of these I don't know what they're called, bands, they go, I don't remember, but you do some menial labor and you do the same thing over and over again. And just when you go there initially, like, my God, this is so boring. But then, you realize, oh, okay, because I think this, I become it and I create it. And, that becomes the level of expansion in my world. But, to instead go there and look at, okay, this is what I have, but what am I able to create with it? Okay, so I see that this job requires me to be very focused, because I have to take each crate like that, and to take them as specifically as possible, I require to be, very attentive. And then you can begin to, use your environment and what you have to develop such a skill. And then you can, for example, show some of your family members that when you go home. And then suddenly you have a completely different situation where you have actually turned something quite crap into something beneficial and cool.
Right, I totally agree, absolutely. It's like, even if your job is crappy, it's like to use it as like, even if it's crappy, to use it as like building blocks, so to speak, to build a better you or a better life for yourself in the future with, for example, expanding your skills or creating yourself resonantly out there. Because if you go with what I realized, if I go with an attitude of, or a starting point of, oh, this is so crappy, I don't want to do it, it's like that's gonna imprint in my beingness, and I'm obviously creating myself resonantly like that too, and opportunities that would have otherwise opened up for a different starting point are gonna remain closed because I'm creating it like that.
Yeah. And do you have anything to share on that, Michelle?
Nothing in addition. I just cool perspectives here.
Okay, so I see that we are, at the end of the hangout. So, any final words from you guys?
I just want to bring up a quote that I had in mind of Bruce Lee. It goes like, if you love life, don't waste time, for time is what life is made of.
Oh,
And I can see a correlation to that.
yeah, that's a cool part.
It's cool. For anyone who's young and who has that saying, what is it? You only live once. Yeah, you only live once.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I mean, they do. They kind of they use that saying more like, oh, screw it, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna, I'm gonna be wild. But you can also utilize that and say, no, what can I, how can I make the best of my life? How can I not only contribute to myself, but contribute to the lives of others? So when I die, I have no regrets, kind of thing.
Yeah, so instead of, oh my god, I'm gonna drink so much this life, instead look at, okay, but what can I give of that is actual value to others?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so thanks very much, guys. It was an awesome hangout. Very cool perspectives opened up. And
Pleasure.
and next week, Talmon will be hosting the hangout, and I'm not really sure yet what movie. And it will be the same time, Friday. So I'll see you then. So bye, Alan and Michelle.
Bye.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
And bye, viewers.